Welcome, folks. Mil-Spec Optical here. It's going to be your SITREP. It is 8/29/2024 as we get into the deets of what's going on around the world. We come to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. And without further ado, let's get into what we got to cover today. We're going to talk survey flights for a brief minute because I think it's important that we all understand that these things have not stopped or let up on any level. In fact, we're kind of out of the season for when they typically do survey flights, because in the fall and winter, when there are less leaves on the trees, is typically when they would do or conduct these flights. But it's not just here in the United States. It is abroad. We've talked about them in the past. Look, we're talking over 60,000+ survey flights in a year. It's mind-boggling. So I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. Let's do this first and foremost. We're going to get into what's currently up in the sky from a military perspective. And just going to show you that we are sitting at around 202,000. You're going to notice, let's kind of peel that onion back. A lot of the trainers have been pulled out, but look at the amount of KC-135s up. There's 35 KC-135s and 10 B767-200 Pegasus. Those are also refuelers, by the way. But the interesting piece to that is just given that that's a very high number. You're talking 45, which is 5 of them are not over the United States, but 40 over the continental United States. And again, that's a very big number for air refuelers and a very big indicator of fighter activity. So it tells you we've been worried about something. This is not the normal thing that you would see. Let's talk H-60s for just a brief minute, too. Just notice the flurry of Blackhawks. I don't know what's going on with that. That's 35 of those. 6 to 8 is kind of our normal. So, again, very unusual to see that kind of quantity when it comes to Blackhawks. And then, of course, we go over here and we look at what is up from an H-47 perspective. A lot of trainer activity, it looks like. But those are going to be your banana copters. And let's just kind of get into what is going on out there. Let's start off here in the watch list. And one of the things I want to show you are, notice the altitude. That thing's at 80,000 feet. You see how big that circle is? That's surveillance is what they're conducting. Reconnaissance surveillance on us, the U.S. citizenry. But it's not just here. It's over in Europe as well. But look at the coverage over the United States. You probably are talking at least 50% of the United States is covered in some type of survey or collection, data collection on us, right? You see some low altitude ones. And then, of course, you see a couple SAM flights rolling down into Florida. Those are going to be your blue and whites. That right there is Air Force One. That is up. I see that the Doomsday plane is also up over the center of the United States. That's a common occurrence, so don't anybody panic. But you can see it's quite active. There's one that's actually in Canada. So now we're starting to deploy them over Canada. I'd be a little concerned if I were Canadians because that's a U.S. asset probably being contracted by the Canadian government to collect data like Five Eyes. Now look at this Q4 that is out over Europe. And notice how big a swatch that one's gathering. And then these right here, you've got 2 R-135 doing SIG intel. Again, that circle is where they are basically doing their damage. And you can see here, low altitude stuff. You've got the Israelis fully penetrating everything end to end when it comes to Israel because the coverage at that altitude with that particular aircraft. Now, look at the intel birds. I've got a picture of what they look like over here off the side, but notice that one jumps out into where that danger box is normally located. It still is located off our left coast. And then you can see a little bit of activity as they bounce into Alaska and back down. And then you see a broken trace there. Some moves across the country, and then a flurry of Army activity out of Hunter Army Airfield there in Savannah, Georgia. And then you can see some stuff going on there in Europe as always. See this one to the north of Libya? That's because Russia is hot and heavy inside Libya. That's why we're looking at it. And then you can see Israel. Of course, that's that B703 we just looked at more than likely. Okay, let's talk drones. Q4s, Q9s, low-hanging, low-altitude ones too. Over Turkey, those are the smaller drones. This coming out of Malta over, it looks like it bounced right over Cyprus and right off the coastline of Israel, high altitude. And then that one there is actually just straight up. So it looks like it's almost one of those, like the white balloons that just go up and hang out, gathering everything. There's nothing moving in the Persian Gulf that they don't have eyes on. All right. Now you can see as we kind of get a little further into the United States, the drone activity has kind of dropped off a bit, but notice that one up in and out of Salt Lake City, probably close to Ogden if I had to guess, and then off the East Coast, back and forth, very close to where, the Chesapeake and off the coastline there of DC and Norfolk. All right, let's talk R135s because now we're starting to see another uptick. Just notice, remember, this is SIG Intel, so they're gathering tower data, cell data, files that are being transmitted, anything electronic, satellite stuff. Yeah, it's things that you think are encrypted. They're capturing it, and they're gathering every single drop. And look at this down. That's a little concerning off the southern border, right there near Del Rio. The fact that they're looking at that area closely with SIG Intel, a little concerning as well. And then you can see some little bounces there around Kaliningrad, out over the Baltic Sea, and then over Constanta, looking very likely at Crimea and or Serbia and Kosovo from there. Again, this is 3 days worth of flights. It's not a lot. You can see something bouncing out of Okinawa, but it just goes dark. All right, let's talk AWACS for a brief minute here. And just notice that right down to the border. Now, again, advance warning. This is an aircraft that's looking for nuclear, any type of nuclear stuff. And then notice that it bounces out over kind of Washington State there on that coastline. Of course, up here to the north, between our northern and our Canadian border. Northern Canadian border. There we go. And then you can see this out over Norway. Interesting. Not something we typically would see. And then over Germany, Poland, that side of the house. And then you can see France pretty heavily. And then down towards south over kind of the Mediterranean. And then you can see that one doing a little man in the middle circle there. Also over the Mediterranean, that could be looking at ship stuff, tracking anything and everything in and out of the Mediterranean. And then you can see that it actually lands in, looks to be Jordan. Nothing there. A little bit of work off the east coast of Australia, down under. All right, let's talk surveys for a minute, and then I'm going to show you the gas stuff. Look at this survey flights. We're averaging over 60,000 a year. This doesn't just stop in the United States, but if you want to look at what they're doing continuously, it's nonstop. Now, I will tell you, as I started to do some more investigating, look, there are certain ones that happen every single year, but it's not in this kind of volume and number. You're talking, USGS does stuff, and NASA does stuff, NOAA does stuff, right? But military and security agencies do a lot of intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance at ISR, as we always talk about. That would be like the U.S. Air Force and other national military forces regularly conduct such flights. I bet you didn't know that, did you? Yeah, well, we've been watching them. There are private companies do it too, and then NGOs. But more than likely, this is tied to our government. And I say that because, look at Hawaii. There are no stones unturned here when it comes to where they're covering. The U.S. is in abundance. So what happens? Could it be that they're going to leverage our assets in a digital currency world? Look at this as they go up to the northern end of Norway. They're covering Denmark, Netherlands. It's all over the place. Sweden's got it. You get down here. Now look at this one over the water. This is what makes me think this is certainly going to be government behind it. Why are they looking with the LiDAR over water? That means they're penetrating into the water, probably looking for some underwater stuff there. Maybe there's an underwater base. Who knows? But they're doing a lot of stuff there, even with the drones, probably doing the exact same kind of LiDAR deal. But look at Australia. Now, this is why I say definitely government behind it because, and I don't mean USGS, this is military, all right? And I say that because I showed you how they are putting NOTAMs out in Australia saying we're going to be conducting LiDAR flights. So that tells you right there, the government is behind it. They're the ones that file all those TFRs when it comes to that type of thing. So I don't have a good feeling about it. Something is definitely up here, and it's either mapping a battlefield or they are leveraging assets against us. So when things go digital, you will own nothing and you will be happy because the government will take everything that you own and they'll leverage it. And you think, well, they can't really do that. I own this stuff. I own it outright. But, look at eminent domain. I mean, when it comes to land, the government just comes in and says, that's mine. They just take it from you. You can't do anything about it. You can't fight it. Can't do anything. They just come and take it. I could see them doing very similar things. So pay close attention to that. Now, let's talk air refuelers for just a brief second. There is something that has changed. Given the fact that there is a flurry of activity, we show you that when we look at the live data in terms of these tankers off the left coast, pretty hot and heavy. A couple little flights into Hawaii, but notice Hawaii's pretty active also. Now, the interesting thing, big takeaway from this is just the sheer fact that notice last time we got together, there were a sea of air refuelers out over the Caribbean, down towards Cuba, southern Florida, out over the Atlantic. They're not there. They wiped those flights, right? But you do see a couple that head down to what looks to be South America. But then look at the ones going across the drink. Remember, every time we've checked in, there's been a bunch. That's because they're moving fighters across the drink. Now there's nothing. So are all the fighters where they need to be? Maybe, all right? And then to show you that there's fighters out there, you see these little marshalling points, the circles, right? Notice it's right up there along the Baltic Sea. It's over Poland. It's out over the North Sea. Then you get a little further south. Notice that they look like they're a couple flights, broken traces going out over Syria. We've got some activity into Kuwait and down into the Middle East. But again, every time we've checked in, I've shown you a ton of traces going across. That's a big indicator of fighters making it across the drink. Not the case, right? See, actually a little blip down in Australia. Don't see that very often either, all right? Okay, now let's talk what is going on when it comes to the news and everything else. Let's really give you a general idea. This is what we have seen now for quite some time. Out of town, actually out to lunch is probably more like it. Nothing on here. He gets a daily briefing at 12:30. Dude putting on his jammies about 10 a.m. And he's on vacation. Been on it for 2 weeks. This president's taken more vacation than any other president, I believe, in history. But do we care? Honestly, this is just goes to show you that there ain't nobody driving the ship right now, which is kind of scary. You know he's not calling the shots, and you know Kamala is also not calling the shots. All right. Speaking of not calling the shots, have you noticed that they seem to be trying to shadow the policies of Trump? Yeah, look, if you've fallen for it, none of us are, at least not on this show and not in this community. But, there are people out there that buy into this. Look at this. She thinks it's now, used to say it was un-American to have a border wall. Now she supports it. The person that was supposed to be the border czar that never showed up to the border ever is now telling everybody, oh, no, we want a wall. We're going to have to do a wall. This lady is a straight up liar. They're all liars. Let's get real. All right. There ain't a politician out there. If their mouth's moving, they're lying to you. So all they want is they want to hit you in the wallet. This is the crux of it all. They want you to donate to their campaigns. But yet, if you turn around and look at every politician out there, they are stealing from us in every chance they get, right? Whether it's, stock trades or whatever it may be, but through higher taxes, or whether they're just cooking the books somewhere like Ukraine, pushing money over, laundering it, and then, populating their coffers. It's absolutely insane. And I think the day of reckoning is coming for these folks. Now, look at this. Speaking of border stuff, we'll look at some of the flights, but here we go. They've just added more to their slush fund as DHS showers millions on sanctuary cities and NGOs for resettling illegals in the United States. Notice what they show in the picture here, all women and children. We know that's not the case. It's just so It just makes you sick. They lie to you so much. Let's go over here. Let's just take a gander at what's going on. This is going to be Global X, all right? And what I want to show you is them moving folks in and out of the border towns. You see that one, a little touch and go there in Havana, clearly picking some folks up, all right? Then look at these. Phoenix would be the only one, but notice it goes up to Denver. But notice the border touch points, right? What you don't see this time, but remember, this only lasts 3 days. I don't see anything in Central or South America, all right? But they are certainly moving folks from one side of a border over in California to Texas and then putting them on flights and buses, et cetera, as they process them through here. Remember, everybody shifted over to Texas when Abbott threw up a bunch of razor wire and floaties across the water where they were coming in through Del Rio. But, now they go to California in droves. California's letting them all in. But what happens is they get a little overwhelmed. So they go, hey, let's just share it. Let's take these folks, put them on planes. We'll send them over to Texas, and then we'll process them through there. So they're just flying them in. That's border to border. What's really going on is they're flying them in from down into Central and South America and just straight all the way up to like Ohio and Missouri and all these other places. So, all right, moving on. This one here, 5 signs that the U.S. is collapsing. Now, I've talked about, given that we are rich in history when it comes to following the collapse of Rome. And here we are again. This is from Zero Hedge. Puts this out. It's really over. I mean, really over the target here. Look at this. A house divided. Okay, we've never been so divided, the left and the right. Like we have been saying, more than likely at this election cycle, it's going to go hot either way. Some kind of civil unrest, because either the left is going to freak out because Trump got in, or the right's going to freak out because Trump did not get in. And so we're getting to this point now where it's almost inevitable that this is going to happen, all right? You talk about here that violence is now the new protest, right? And it really is. We don't see people coming out and peacefully protesting anywhere, except for the Republicans, if and when they do it. But everybody else, man, they're throwing rocks and Molotovs, and there's gas flying and all kinds of stuff, all right? And then, of course, our country is just falling apart. Look at our grids. Look at everything. They're trying to power load our electric grid with all of these, electric vehicles, when the reality is our grid won't even sustain what we currently have. So why would you continue to pile on without upgrading that first and then trying to pile it on? Instead, it's backwards, as always. We're on there. The world is on its head, just like this. Morals are decaying. Yeah, we talk about that. The moral compass is completely on its head. Right is wrong, wrong is right. The Bible actually tells you about that. And it's happening. And then here, we're going broke. Yeah, we're spending money like you think we had gold to back it. We don't. That's why I'm showing you survey flights. We're at $30 trillion in debt and climbing, right? But at the end of the day, you look at the survey flights and you go, well, how is the United States going to back a digital currency if you have nothing to back it against? You got debt. That's all you got, and a ton of it. So how can you possibly? You don't have gold to back it. You got unobtainium is what you have. You're spending it to a point where all you're doing is padding your coffers. You're going to break this country, and to the point where you have no other choice but to collapse it. That's where we're headed. All right. It's, just buckle up, folks, because it's coming. It's just a matter of time, and it ain't that far off, but it is definitely coming. All right. All right. Let's talk NOTAMs for a minute. Again, danger boxes out here off the left coast down towards Baja. And you can see Mexico's actually got a lot going on too. We see these boxes off the East Coast really expand and contract. There's something going on out here. We know that for a fact, given the amount of fighter activity. All right, but just pay close attention to what's going on in terms of that. Of course, again, they're just getting crazy out here on the Iceland side of the house, and just a normal operation. But it seems to be kind of a pivotal point for us. We know we've got troops up here in Greenland. In fact, the Army just put some stuff up there. We know we've got stuff going on out of Iceland. We see the P8s and P3 flights come in and out of there, out to the Baltic Sea, i.e. Nord Stream, right? But then you get out, notice France is also putting danger boxes out. So is the UK, right? All right, let's move on from that. Let's get over to this piece. Now, this is very concerning, and if I had to guess that China was going to make a move on Taiwan, this would be an opportunity for them. I do believe that if they're gonna make that move, they're gonna try and do it before Trump gets in. They won't do it when Trump's in. So they've got a very short window, where 65 days, 66 days or so, in terms of until the election. The U.S. Navy has no aircraft carriers deployed in the Pacific. Everything's in the Middle East. We've shown you that. We go over here to the headline side, and I've shown you we are surrounding the Middle East. That's why I think something is up here, deliberately up. All right. But again, as we pull all of that out. All right, let's talk Biggs Army Airfield. The big thing I want to show you, look at the amount of banana copters flying on the board. You got a couple heavies coming in, which is pretty unusual, leaving as an Atlas Air, headed over to Baltimore, Washington. But all of these Rs are H-60 Blackhawks. All of these CHs are Chinooks, right? And then some C-17s coming in. Look at this one actually departing, headed to Charleston. So that's probably taking some heavy equipment, artillery, etc., out to Charleston to be put on a boat. Okay, one camber flight. Very, very strange. Prince Sultan Airport headed into Saudi Arabia. 747. And looks, I can't tell who that is, but it is Transportation Command. Then we get over here to this side. It's going to be the Brits. Look like they are rolling in and out of Europe back to the UK, but you see them here too, headed down south. I don't know where they're going in this case. And then one coming out of Florida, looks like. So, all right. That's not the one that concerns me. We see the Brits pretty frequently over here in the United States. Speaking of the Brits, look at this. UK riots, right? You're talking about an 11-year-old child just got arrested over violent disorder in Middlesbrough. This, you know what? I don't know what's going on in the UK, but you guys are on your head right now. And if you know why the riots took shape, it's because an illegal actually murdered via knife some small children, okay? And that's what got this whole thing sparked. And when you're overrun by them, when the people start to rise up, it's, you know, it's going to happen. But this right here is just another level of ridiculousness as they go and throw, you know, people that are showing things on social media. This, an 11-year-old, come on, give me a break. You guys are losing it over there. You better get it together. All right, look at this. This is going to be Ramstein, and the very interesting thing is it's very light. We haven't seen it this light in a long time. In fact, there's almost nothing on the board there. So we'll move on. All right, speaking of Ramstein, look at the Germans. What are you doing over here, right? Here we see them in Canada. We had another flight, several other flights actually, that just dropped off the board that were inside the United States in the interior of our country. And, you know, you can see some stuff going on. They're in Central America. Again, very unusual. The Germans have got some very strange activity going on right now, and we just need to keep eyes on it because it makes me really worry about UN/NATO stuff when you start to see them going in and out of Canada and heavily into the United States. Okay. Now, let's talk RZE Poland. We're just going to look at the board here very quickly. I don't see a tremendous amount of activity in and out of the forward operating base. In fact, I see very little. Strange. Very, very strange. There's a U.S. Navy logistics bird that's leaving. I've got a NATO flight that's leaving. Yeah, very odd. And very light. There's a 747 that was on ground that's leaving. Again, very strange, very light compared to what we have typically seen. We seem to see a little bit of a lull in some of this activity. Okay, We talked about drones last time. We showed you that Ukraine had popped some stuff off into Moscow and beyond in terms of Russia. When then Russia came back in our last SITREP and was lighting up Ukraine with drone activities all the way into Kiev. But this is just, again, we're seeing more and more drones come into play. The Army has just ordered almost $1 billion worth of drone stuff for loitering assets over the next 5 years. That's a little concerning, especially if it's used here domestically. Nothing worse than having a drone hanging out over your head waiting for you to come out of your house, right? But look at this. Ukraine's new long-range weapon won't be the Wunderwaffe that some imagine. Ukraine's new long-range weapon to bypass Western restrictions and hit deep into Russia. So this thing's got a very long range on it. And this is what it's going to look like. Notice it looks a lot like a jet. It's got a little jet engine in it, but it doesn't have anybody in it. So these are nothing more than just kamikaze drones. Getting very crazy. It is feeling a lot like Terminator with the stuff that's coming. Wait till the robots hit the ground that are all AI that DARPA's been working on for a long time. All right, and we just talked about this. More explosions rock Kiev for the third time in a week, and you can see them doing some, looks like some smoke and some firefighting there maybe. Yeah, it looks like the capital of Kiev is getting pummeled yet again for the third straight time. Again, I don't see Russia actually trying to take them out. I see them pushing them back because I think they're waiting to see what happens with Trump. If Trump comes in, the funding goes away for Ukraine, and Russia's going to come in and basically take out Zelensky and take that country back over. So we will continue to watch that piece of it. Until then, let's just keep our ear to the ground. We're headed into a long weekend, and we are getting very close to the election. And I do think we are going to continue to see craziness happen, and it will probably accelerate as we get closer and closer to the election. So that's it. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. For those in the chat, we'll see you over in the Q&A here immediately following this. Everyone else, we'll see you over the weekend on Patreon with the Monkey Minute and the Under the Radar. You guys be safe. God bless. Monkey out. Artisan handcrafted soaps. Get yours in the Monkey Werx shop today.